Good evening and welcome to the first ever virtual banquet for the Pembina Counselling Centre. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kris and I'm the Executive Director of PCC. And on behalf of the board and all the staff of PCC, we just want to welcome you to this event. And the fact is that we've had to change our plans. It's hard to believe that just 3 months ago we had a venue booked, we had the food booked, we had the speaker booked, and everything had to be canceled. And I'm sure you can relate to that in some way, shape, or form. And you know, the scripture that has come to my mind during this time, and interestingly, I've heard no one reference it, but it comes to James chapter 4, verses 13. And it says this, "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry out business and make money, why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that." And you know, it reminds me of my favorite movie, which is Raiders of the Lost Ark. And in the movie, the Nazis are loading the Ark of the Covenant onto a truck to be shipped to Berlin. And Indy says to his friend Sala, "I'm going after that truck." And Sala replies, "How?" And Indy replies, "I don't know. I'm making this up as I go." And I think that's how life is for most of us right now. We're making it up as we go. You know, we don't, if you're running a business or if you're homeschooling or even if you're deciding what you're having for dinner, you're making it up as you go. But you know what? I'm comforted by the fact that there's one person that is not making it up as he goes, and that is our Heavenly Father. You know, He's got this in hand. This pandemic has not caught Him by surprise or off guard. He is not pacing the streets of heaven, wringing his hands, thinking, what do I do? What do I do? And you know, I don't know what the number is, but I'm sure you can Google it as to how many times the Lord says in His Word, do not worry or do not be afraid. But I want to encourage you with this scripture from Psalm 46. And it says, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging." We are here to have some fun tonight. We are not professional broadcasters by any stretch, if you haven't noticed already, and we hope that we are a blessing to you. We're so grateful that you could tune in with us. And yeah, we just want to be a blessing to you. We've got a great program lined up. We've got Pastor Bruce Martin as our guest speaker. We've got special music, some testimonies. And before we get into all that, I just wanted to do some housekeeping stuff before we get going. So firstly, if you are tuning in or trying or having technical difficulties, please give us a call right now at 204-822-6622. We've got people standing by live to help you with any technical difficulties you may have. Secondly, if you haven't ordered some supper already or haven't eaten, then I encourage you to give King's Deli a call. They are making their famous wood-fired pizza tonight, and they will deliver it to your door. So give them a call or support any one of the local restaurants who are in need of your business right now. And finally, I just want to do some thank yous right off the bat. You know, this is a big production, and I am not technically savvy, but there are people who are and who are in high demand right now, and I want to thank them. I want to thank Steve and Nathan from Simmons Media. They are the guys that have put this together, and I'm so grateful for them to do that. I want to thank Warren Pettit from Nashville, Tennessee. He is making it possible for our guests from Nashville to be here. And I want to thank Derek Brown from Winnipeg, Manitoba for helping Bruce Martin to be a part of this as well. So with that, we want to get into our program, and I want to introduce our special guest for the music. And that is about 15 years ago, when I lived in Winnipeg, a up-and-coming Christian band was coming through town, singing at a youth concert or something like that, and they were billeted with my parents. And this is a band from Briarcrest, Saskatchewan, and that band went on to record 6 studio albums and win Juno Awards, Dove Awards, and a whole bunch of stuff. And later they disbanded to get off the road. But anyway, that band is down here. And so I reconnected with one of their lead singers, Jason Germain, and he lives in Nashville. He's a worship pastor. He's a music producer. He's still writing and recording music. and doing a bunch of other stuff. So I'm so grateful for Jason to be willing to share some original music with you tonight, and I hope it's a blessing to you. So thank you, Jason, for being here tonight.
Carved in tablets made of stone, a covenant and offerings and commandments. Your glory shone from your holy throne. The word of God from the King, a love for the people, all nations will sing. A lamb will atone and bear the sin, and the God of the universe speaks his command. The word of God became flesh, his name would be Emmanuel. God with us the world would see, ascending the footpath of Golgotha, carrying the evil of the world, then lifted on the emblem of salvation. Who became flesh, was broken for us. The word of God, nailed to a tree, cried, Father, forgive them. Divine mercy, his blood on a cross, buried for 3, and the God of the universe rises and speaks. The word of God, like the crash of the sea, the roar of the ocean, my soul's relief. The Spirit reveals as deep calls to deep. Oh God of the universe, speak to me through the word of God. The word of God.
Thank you so much, Jason Germain, for being with us here all the way from Nashville and for blessing us with that beautiful song. I just want to mention the venue that we're in. You might have noticed the scenery in the background, and we are here at Precision Land Solutions, and I just want to do a shout out to Kris for letting us film in the atrium here at TerraPoint. Right now you can't come tour the building, obviously, but when the restrictions are lifted, be sure to come and check it out. It's just a beautiful facility. So thank you to him and his staff for letting us use this place. We had wanted to do this in person once again at the banquet with all of you, but we have to do it now. But I'm here with Paul Penner, my predecessor, and has been with PCC for 27 years, I believe. And I have two questions for you, Paul. One of which is, how are you enjoying retirement?
Hey, I'm actually semi-retired,
Oh,
Kris.
okay, all right.
And the semi is that I had to step aside so that you could take over.
That explains why you still have keys to the office.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. So, Paul, what is your new role? What exactly is your function now?
Well, I'm the clinical director of the Counselling Centre, and so I got some great colleagues to work with.
I believe that too. Yeah. Great. My second question for you is, you know, you and I first met by going out for lunch to Lucky's restaurant in Morden.
That's right.
Chinese food. I know it's your favorite. They've got your picture as the St. Paul pictured, framed on the wall there. And how are you doing with that being shut down right now? Or they're there for takeout, but it's not the same as a buffet.
No.
How are you doing with that?
Yeah, well, I'm on withdrawal from Lucky's, but there's actually two answers.
Okay.
My wife is very happy, and I'm not.
Okay. All right. So it all evens out.
Yeah, I'm one of the big patrons.
Oh, yes, you are.
Yes.
I think you single-handedly keep them in business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I try.
Right on. Well, hey, Paul, it's, I am very humbled. Paul, like I said, is my predecessor, and I have very big shoes to fill. And Paul, on behalf of myself, I just want to thank you for being such a great friend and a great mentor to me. You have left an incredible legacy, and that continues. And I'm so grateful to be a part of PCC and to still be able to work with this man. It's a great privilege. And I work with a wonderful team, and it's my privilege to also introduce one of our counselors who is no longer a rookie counselor, and that is Christine Elias. She's been with our team for over 2 years now, and she's here to share some thoughts on counseling, about what we do, and the services that we're providing at this time. So thank you, Christine.
I joined the team at Pembina Counselling Centre in February 2018. And joining the team for me was a huge answer to prayer. And if I can be completely honest, I actually never considered working anywhere else. So I kind of had put all my eggs into one basket and prayed that that would work that way. I was drawn to Pembina Counselling Centre because I felt like their vision and their mission fit with what I believed as a Christian and what I felt that I was being called to do. I remember it was even before I started studying. I had gone to a fundraising banquet with my husband, and that night Paul shared a story from his work at the center. What he shared really impacted me, and I remembered it for all of these years. What he talked about was meeting with a client who he noticed had huge holes in his shoes. And he went on to tell us that night that the next time they met, he brought along a brand new pair of shoes. And I said to myself, if ever I become a counselor, that's the kind of place where I want to work. What I valued most was that a counselor could value the whole person, that they could care about not only things that were emotional, mental issues, but also personal issues, right down to the holes in someone's shoes. And so I guess I tucked that story back in my mind as I began to study, and pulled it back out later when I was considering where I wanted to be. Sometimes people think about counseling and they wonder, is counseling for me? Or what's the benefit to counseling? How could it help me? What I think is a huge benefit to counseling, and how I explain it to people, is it's like when we feel stuck in life's problems, maybe a difficult situation, a tense relationship, or even the overwhelming thoughts that we're thinking, it can really help even just to have a new perspective on what's going on in our life. I have this picture in my office, and what I love about this picture is it's a beautiful analogy of what a counseling experience can be. So when we are stuck in an overwhelming situation, we often feel like this gentleman, that all our problems are like a huge knotted ball of yarn. And the truth is, when we begin to share those thoughts, the experiences that we've had or the feelings that we're having, and we tell it to a trusted counselor, and they can provide a new perspective on that, it can turn into something that looks like a beautiful patterned scarf. So for me, this illustrates beautifully that idea of a problem that's met with a fresh perspective and how things can change. Sometimes in our life, there are problems that are just too big for us to handle. And we as a team at Pembina Counselling Centre are professionally trained and ready to meet with you, willing to walk with you through the issues that you're navigating. We offer as a team counseling in many areas such as finances and strained relationships, parenting issues. With the uncertainties that are going on today, we talk about things like anxiety and fears. And we want you to know that even as things are uncertain, we look forward to meeting with you. It will be done via video or phone call, but we would love to meet with you and navigate life's difficulties with you.
Thank you so much, Christine, for sharing a bit about your story and what we do at PCC. You know, I have the privilege of working with great people, and it was always the plan for this year to add one more counselor to our staff. And I'm so thankful because that's one plan that we were actually able to continue with this year. And so it's my privilege and just joy to introduce the newest member, the newest counselor to the PCC team, and that is Brent Thiessen. Brent, welcome to our team, and congratulations. You have just graduated or are graduating at the end of the month, and so welcome here.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to be part of the team.
Yeah, and just briefly tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to become a counselor.
Okay. Yeah, I've, like you said, grew up in this this community. Shinevais was my original home. I lived at Winkler Bible Camp for a number of years, and ended up back in this community through many different twists and winds and different pathways. I was out in Alberta for a little while studying psychology, getting me to the place that I am here today. And for me, counseling has always been something that's piqued my interest. It hasn't always been what I wanted to do right off from the bat, but from an early time at Winkler Bible Camp, I enjoyed working with other staff, talking with them, having discussions with them, listening to them, trying to build into their relationships and have them build into mine as well too. And that kind of sparked that interest. I ended up being in engineering for a little while there, in a bit of a misguided venture, but God ended up bringing me back. And the last 8 years of learning and taking the steps to being a counselor has been an absolutely rewarding experience. I'm looking forward to building into my community, the community of Winkler, Morden, and beyond. And I can't wait to get that started. These last 8 years are going to be towards something. In the last year, I think I've been finding that I've been even more passionate about serving this community and serving some of you who are listening right now. So I'm really, thank you for that opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we're so grateful to have you on the team now, Brent, and your wife works at Winkler Mennonite Brethren Church, I believe?
Yes.
And what is her role there?
She is the director for the junior youth program currently. So yeah, so
Right
she's
on.
really enjoying doing that and all the fun that is associated with trying to figure out what that means with COVID-19.
Yeah.
So
Right on.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, welcome to our team, and we're just so grateful that we found you and you found us. And yeah, God bless you in your journey as a counselor. And as I mentioned before, I just have the privilege of working with wonderful people at PCC. And I just want to do a great big thank you to all of them, to my assistant Danita, to all the counselors who are working overtime in helping us to pivot and adjust and making it up as we go in terms of operating in this COVID-19 reality right now. Our counselors have been working overtime to help local business and counseling on site and things of that nature. And so a great big thank you to them. And again, normally you would see them at a banquet, but here is a shot of our counselors, and they are practicing safe distance guidelines, and we do every day at the office. And so I just want to do a special thank you to Mark Sawatsky. Mark was our Community Development Officer for about 18 months, and his term ended last year. And Mark has been a tremendous asset to the PCC team. He helps us with our marketing and our branding, and even to this day, he helps us with marketing and even in this production. So I just want to thank Mark for serving PCC so faithfully. You are a friend and a brother, Mark, and I'm thankful for you. Right now, we have the privilege of hearing from one of our clients. You know, I worked for a Teen Challenge for nearly 10 years, and it was commonplace for us to go to churches or door to door and give our testimony. When you think of counseling, you don't think of people that have gotten counseling to do that. But I'm so grateful for Julie Hepner. She's a friend of our ministry, and she's a former client of ours, and she's here to be a blessing to you and an encouragement by sharing her testimony and what God has done through the ministry of PCC in her life. Thank you, Julie.
In 2003, I found myself a single mom. I had 2 kids. I had moved here from Calgary in 1996, and my husband left and wasn't interested in working on our marriage. I didn't know how I was gonna make ends meet and how I was gonna do things going forward. I was scared and I was alone. All of my family was in Calgary. The church I was attending at the time had called Pembina Counselling Centre for me and went ahead and made an appointment on my behalf. I was given the coping skills to learn how to manage emotions and how to deal with the bombardment of thoughts, the feelings of rejection, and how to have a day-to-day schedule and a routine with one person not being able to take up the slack and help me around the house with the children, and on top of it all, 2 very despondent children wondering what just happened to their lives. I saw Paul, but the thing that stood out to me the most were 2 things. One, I never felt like I was a client. At first, of course, I didn't know who he was as a person, and I had to get to know his style and him, my style, and the way that we responded to each other. But what developed from that was a friendship. And every time I went to see him, I felt like I was coming to see family. Somebody who was genuinely interested in me and not my money. And the reason why I'm saying that was because as a single mom, I actually couldn't afford to pay. I never did pay for any of my sessions. And if it wasn't for the people in the community who gave over and above and beyond the call of duty, what was made available to me may not have been there, and I would have had to have struggled through life's uncertainties without the help of Paul and the staff and everybody that was involved in making every visit personable and relatable. And I realized at that point, I think I'm doing okay. And what ended as professional counseling stayed as friendship. And life went on, and there were bumps, and every now and then I would do what I would call a check-in or a tune-up, and I would call or I would come in for a session, and he would help me put my thinking back on track and help me understand and process and all of those different things. And then in 2008, my daughter, we were living in Winnipeg at the time. We had moved away from the Pembina Valley. We were living in Winnipeg, and we had come to visit on Saturday, January the 11th. My daughter was walking across the street by Tim Hortons, and she was hit by a truck. And she died 3 times. She came back to life 3 times, and it was the only person I knew to call who had been there for me all of those years up to that point was Paul. Once again, it was about the relationship that was built, not just being a client of PCC. Him and his wife drove from Morden all the way to the hospital in Winnipeg where I was with my daughter. I never saw a bill. I was never told that I had to pay for gas money. They were just there for me, and they've been there for me all this time. And I want to say thank you as well to you as a community for being willing to take some of your hard-earned dollars as families, as businesses, to give into Pembina Counselling Centre, because without your donations, without everything that came in to offset what I couldn't pay, I wouldn't be here today. And I'm happily remarried. I have 5 beautiful children. Life is fantastic. And I still use the coping skills and the tools Paul taught me 17 and 18 years ago, even today when I face stress and struggle and trial. So thank you to the community, thank you to the Pembina Counselling Centre for everything that they've done and who they continue to be, and what you do now for us going forward for the Pembina Counselling Centre allows other individuals who are not in a financial position to pay like I was to get the help that they need and go back into life and be the best that they can be. Thanks so much.
I'd just like to thank Julie for giving her testimony and being so vulnerable and willing to share with you tonight. I hope it's been a blessing to you. You know, one of the fundamentals of counseling is confidentiality, and when you go for counseling, you're not signing up to share your story out in public. But I'm so grateful to Julie and her courage to share with you. Again, I hope it's been a blessing to you. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest speaker tonight. I grew up in Winnipeg and attended Calvary Temple for the majority of my life. And just over 23 years ago, a man came to that church to become the new pastor, and his name is Bruce Martin. And you know, I've heard it said that he is Winnipeg's pastor or even Manitoba's pastor, and I think that's a title fitting to him. You know, when I think of the great shepherd that leaves the 99 to go after the one, Bruce Martin is the second guy that comes to my mind right after Jesus. He loves people, he's a compassionate person, and he's a very dear friend of mine. And so I just like to welcome Bruce and thank him for being willing to do this for us tonight. And he's just going to bring a message of hope, and I hope it blesses you this evening. Thank you, Bruce.
Hello, everyone. I am so pleased to be joining you and learning lots about the Pembina Counselling Centre. It has been my privilege in the past to have joined you in your community at the Corn and Apple Festival. And depending on this COVID-19, I'm looking forward to being back this August. So Kris Dirksen, I am so thankful that you have invited me. It's encouraging to see you and Paul sharing about the transition in the ministry that has had such a great track record here in this community. So congratulations to everyone, to you who serve on the board, the staff, and to you, Kris, as you give leadership moving forward. And I would like all of us tonight, just for a few moments, to meditate on the words of Jesus in the Gospel of John. These are powerful words. In this world, verse 33 of chapter 16, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Now, these words of Jesus have always been true. But let me tell you, they have never been more true than they are in the COVID-19 reality. As ministry leaders, as some of you who are professional counselors, everyone with a vested interest in Pembina Counselling Centre, let me tell you, friends in the community, I want us to take these words of Jesus to heart. We are going to have challenges. The truth is, personally, as a ministry, in a community, there will be trouble. Boy, are we in the middle of trouble right now. There will be growing pains. Jesus says, don't panic. Take heart. I've got it all under control. You know, in my devotions on January the 4th, 2017, Nicky Gumbel of the Alpha fame, a person I highly respect, he says this: I have never forgotten a talk that I heard over 30 years ago. He said the speaker started out by saying that the Christian life is battle and blessing. Battle and blessing. Battle and blessing, battle and blessing, battle and blessing. And Nicky says, at the time I thought, why is he going on like this? Will it never end? But he was making a memorable and profound point. When we are in the battle, it's hard to believe that there will ever come an end to it. But when we're in a period of blessing, we sometimes think it will go on and on forever. Well, life is not like that. There are battles and there are blessings. Jesus said, you will have trouble, But don't fear, I have overcome the world. And the truth is, no one lives on a mountaintop all the time. It's just not the way it is. It's not true. And no one individual knows everything. We all go through life learning and growing and getting into difficulty and then coming out of it. So I want to illustrate this by talking to you a little bit about my parents. My mother's maiden name, was Alice Brubaker. My father, Ed Martin, they grew up in Elmira. They were married in the Elmira Mennonite Church in 1944. That's right, Sprechende Deutsch a bissel. Just enough to make my grandmother think I knew how, but I didn't. My parents, right after they were married, started attending a little storefront church in the town of Elmira. And they began to grow in the Lord, and they became charismatized, aware of the workings of the Holy Spirit. And almost instantly, my dad sold the farm, bought a rooming house in Toronto, went to Bible college, became a Pentecostal pastor. That's how my twin brother and I were born in Nipawin, Saskatchewan, because they were pastoring in Carrot River. And if my father were alive, he would be 100 years old on the 20th of June. Now, there's a couple of things I want to tell you about my dad. Number one, he wasn't always right, but he was never in doubt. Never in doubt. In fact, I remember Miriam and I going to Bible college at Horizon in Saskatoon from 1972 to 1975. And we went out in the community, and my father had pastored in a little place called Maisonot, and we were near Moose Jaw. A man came up to me at the local church there where I was speaking that morning, and he said, Are you Ed Martin's son? And I said, I sure am. He said, My, you had a lovely mother. And I tell that story to tell you that we're all different. And none of us are perfect. And we have our different personalities and our approach to life. And so I took what I became, being raised in that very pull up your bootstraps, get on with life, don't hang around, sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. I took that in my suitcase when I got married. I took that baggage with me into our marriage, and here's who we were. I had met Miriam in March. We got engaged in May, and we were married in September. Well, let me tell you, we came from polar opposite homes. Both Christian homes, but very different in our approach to life. And we did not know that. But after the wedding in Owen Sound, Ontario, we drove for 5 or 6 days and got to Saskatoon. That was our honeymoon. And I had saved for a house. I brought $1,500 with me. We paid it down on an $8,000 house in Saskatoon, and I was pretty impressed with myself. I knew what to do, and I knew how to do it. And it was within the second or third week. I was washing the car in Saskatoon. I have permission from Miriam to tell you this, that she knocked on the window as I was washing the car, and she said, I can't breathe. You can't breathe? Well, breathe. In that moment, I was introduced into something that would never be talked about in the home I was raised in, and it's called panic attacks. It's called anxiety. It's called being human. And Miriam was working at the time at University Hospital in Saskatoon, just before she was registered as a registered nurse. And sometimes she would say, I need you to come over and sit in the foyer of the building so I can cope. And she was a phlebotomist going through the hospital taking blood. And so we went to see a Dr. Savage, a counselor, psychologist, I think. And we talked to him for about a half an hour, and he very politely said, Bruce, I'd like to speak with you alone. So I thought that rather strange. It wasn't me who needed help. It was Miriam. Why would he want to talk to me? And I'll never forget. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, young man, I really appreciate you and your wife. And he said, you need to trust me. He said, next time you and Miriam have a conversation, a discussion about work or about having to do something, or you must go to work, and I said, well, she does need to work. And he said, just trust me. If you would tell her that if she needs to stay home, she can. Well, I protested. That made no sense to me. That isn't how I was raised. And he said, you are blowing her fuses. She was not raised the way you were raised. You need to give her space. You need to give her time. Well, friend, 48 years later, I want to thank Dr. Savage for putting his hand on my shoulder. Now, I know you couldn't do that today, but looking me in the eye and saying, young man, you can learn, you can grow. You don't need to be confined by the home you were raised in. And I thank God for your take charge personality. I thank God for what God is doing in you and what he will do, but you need to be gentle with your wife. So a few years later, Dr. Bob Mcdougal, who was on 100 Huntley Street, Roman Catholic priest and a psychologist, and Miriam was struggling after the birth of our second daughter, and she said, I need to go down there, Bruce. Take me there. I want to talk to him. And we once again learned another truth. It wasn't panic attacks. It was the power of forgiveness when it comes to letting go of the hurt that may have been caused in your home life. We learned through some very kind counselor that Miriam was raised in a war zone, in a very, very difficult place. And so through a book that Key to a Loving Heart by Karen Burton Maines, Miriam came home one of those mornings from Toronto with an illustration about a rope. And Karen Burton Maines said that many of you are holding on to a grievance, and someone is holding on to the other end, and you're having a tug of war. And in Miriam's case, she had some very hurtful things that she recalled, and she was arguing with several people in her past. And you know what? She came home and told me, Bruce, today, with my counselor, I dropped the rope. And she learned to live free of those things that had hurt her in the past. So I want you to know that for 45 years of continuous pastoral ministry, Miriam has been beside me and helped me. Because we were both perfect? No. Because we've never had any problems? No. But because a counselor came alongside us and said, we can help. There's no shame in saying you don't know everything. There's no shame in saying, I can't cope. That's how we get help. And so when you invest in Pembina Counselling Centre, you're investing in the lives of individuals and families who need some help to figure out What's blowing the emotional fuses? What's causing panic? What's causing anxiety? Why am I so depressed? Why am I so angry? You know, someone who feels hopelessly victimized beyond repair, it's not true. You are not hopelessly victimized. As believers in Jesus, as those of us who have accepted him into our hearts, let me tell you, we are not victims. The Lord gives us power to forgive. He comes and forgives us, and then we have power to forgive others. We are not helpless victims. There's someone watching, been married 10, 20, 30 years, and life has not been great in that marriage. Certain dimensions of marriage and possibly physical intimacy. And, you know, there's no shame in saying, help me. Help me to see my blind spot. We love each other so much, but we repel each other. We say all the wrong things. We do all the wrong things. Do you know that it was several years into marriage that Miriam and I learned the difference between female intimacy and male intimacy, and that a man is wired differently than a woman. And boy, it was so liberating when we figured that out. We so often hurt each other in those early years of marriage. In fact, Miriam will tell you that she wouldn't give a plug nickel for those first 3 or 4 years. But we didn't stay there. We learned. So in this world, you will have trouble. You will have adjustments to make. But take heart, I have overcome the world. In this Winkler-Morden community, right here and right now, there are people who need some help to navigate life. Some help to overcome anger, to learn to forgive. The Pembina Counselling Centre is a worthy cause. And this place is needed more in 2020 during COVID-19 than ever before. Do you know how many people are scared out of their wits because of this pandemic? They are blowing fuses. And I just want to say your timely investment can make it possible, because you know, and it's been shared in this program, that we need help to add to the fees that are paid by people, and people are not turned away. And what I was so encouraged when I heard that. I thought, wow, that's something I want to invest in. And so I just pray right now that you will help this counseling center, Pembina Counselling Centre, help by giving tonight, by giving whenever you are able. In this unusual time, you get to invest in something that's worthwhile. Your encouragement, your financial help are so crucial now and into the future. And when you think about giving, I just want to close with sharing with you what Miriam and I think about when we invest in Christian ministry. First of all, we like to ascertain, what is the need? Is it a big need? What do we need as a ministry right now at Pembina Counselling Centre? As I shared with Kris, he shared with me that normally during this banquet time, that people give $20,000, $25,000, and of course there's more expenses when a banquet is put on. And so I'm thinking, yes, that's a worthy cause. That's a manageable number. We can do that together. So then Miriam and I ask, what has God given me to contribute? And Paul in Corinthians has stated very clearly that we don't have to give what we don't have. We're not responsible to give what we don't have. So what do we have? And it's unusual for me to say this, but I'm turning 67 in May. Miriam's been retired for 4 years, and I'm still working full time. And we're in a position in life where we have more disposable income than we've ever had. And I think we all need to be honest. I know people who say, too rich for my blood. And there isn't a word of truth in it, because God has blessed them and they have resources. So I want to speak to people that have resources. I want you to help this counseling ministry. Who knows? You may invest the money that helps a young couple that are right at the beginning of their marriage, and they get put on a track that takes them for 45 years of ministry because somebody helped them. And I want to encourage you to invest in this ministry. And I also want to just say, Miriam and I always say this, honey, we don't have to give, we get to give. And so I encourage you to receive that for yourself. And always keep in mind that, and this is Paul in Philippians 4, verse 17, I believe, he says, now, I don't really need your gift, but I'm really excited about the fact that it will be counted in heaven to your account. Heaven's keeping track of it. You know that when we give to the community center down, or the building of the arena, or whatever, some secular project, they put your name on a brick to motivate you to give. As believers, as people who care about this counseling center, we don't need a name on a brick. I'll tell you what we need to remember, that the computer in God's heaven is keeping track of all of it. So I just encourage you, and if we're going to together do something meaningful for this ministry at this time, hiring another staff member, making sure that everyone is able to come regardless of ability to pay, I want to encourage you. And I talked to Miriam, and we've written out a check. We want to invest in this ministry, and we want you to join us. And whether you can do $200 or $500 or $50, I encourage you. And I know that Kris has given you how to do it in this day and age and the various methods that you can do it. I'm not talking about the methods. I'm talking about the heart. Support something that will last for eternity. And help some mother, some father, some son, grandparents, whoever, who is in a sticky place and they need help. Thank you for allowing me to come. Thank you for allowing me to share. May God bless you and make you a blessing. Amen.
I just want to thank Pastor Bruce for being with us here tonight. And I just want to thank everybody who's been involved in this production. This doesn't happen by accident. A lot of people contributed to this, and I just want to thank everyone. And thank you on behalf of the staff and the board of directors of Pembina Counselling Centre. Thank you to all our corporate sponsors. Thank you to all our supporters. Thank you for your prayers. And God bless you, and hope to see you again soon. Good night.
The stars